Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. It's that time once again to take a look at patch 8.6 because there's a bunch of changes and a lot of them are going to most likely be changing the meta as well. So if you guys end up enjoying this video, then definitely don't forget to hit that like button. So this video is going to be sponsored by Mobalytics. It's a great website that helps you improve at League of Legends through their GPI Gamer Performance Index. There are 8 key features that it looks at, but the one we'll look at today is going to be farming. It gives you various stats and ways to improve on in this specific category, such as the general income, your farm efficiency, your early game, your mid game, your late game. It'll give you tips on how to improve it and everything that you need to know just to get better. I'll have a link to the website down below. Highly recommend checking it out. You will not be disappointed. So the very first thing I want to talk to you guys about very quickly is the fact that the reworks for LeBlanc and Ahri are going to be delayed for at least another patch. They will not be coming out in just a couple of days. But now the first actual change for patch 8.6, we're going to be talking about Kai'Sa. Surprisingly to me, she hasn't had the best win rate, maybe because people are playing her incorrectly or whatever the reason may be, so she is receiving some buffs. They are increasing her attack range by 25, which is a pretty big help. Her range on her Q ability is being increased, and also the minimum movement speed on her E ability and the charge time have both been increased and lowered respectively. In other words, she will be more quick with her E ability, and also she'll be able to attack after using the E ability much more often as well. All in all, some pretty solid Kai'Sa buffs, and I think this will without question bring her to a good spot. Moving along, we also have some buffs coming over to Kayn, someone that definitely needs some assistance. So we have his W Blade's Reach, where the bonus AD ratio has been increased by 10%, and then we also have his ultimate, Umbral Trespass, where the bonus AD ratio has also been increased by another 10%. Now keep in mind guys, you're going to be seeing a lot of buffs to a lot of AD assassins, but there is a big reason for this because Duskblade is receiving some pretty hefty nerfs. But with that being said, let's move on to Kha'Zix. The buffs to Kha'Zix are as follows. First, we have his Q ability. The isolation bonus damage has been increased from 65% to 100%, which, if I do say so myself, is quite the generous of buff. Following that, the bonus AD ratio has been increased by 10%, but at least the base damage on the Q ability has been slightly lowered. But to make up for this extra huge bonus damage to his Q ability with how well it scales now, his W no longer does 20% bonus damage to monsters, because if it did, his jungle clear will just be simply way too strong for how strong his Q ability and dueling potential now is. Next up, we have some buffs coming over to Lee Sin, where first starting off with this passive, the energy return has just overall been increased, and on top of this, the ultimate damage has also been increased by rank 1 being the same, rank 2 up by 75, and 150 bonus damage by rank 3. Again, since now you no longer will actually be able to go Duskblade Lee Sin because of the big nerfs, this will help him by quite a bit and give him quite a bit of damage to his ultimate. Now, I don't really think a lot of people go Duskblade Lee Sin to even begin with, so I think this is just going to buff Lee Sin to a spot where he will be quite strong, despite Tracker's Knife being a pretty big nerf to him. Next up, we also have some buffs coming over to Lucian, where Ardent Blaze, his W, the damage has been increased by a decent amount, and also his ultimate, Culling, has also had his AD ratio increased by 5%. So not the biggest buffs in the entire world for Lucian, but he did recently receive some buffs as well, so they don't want to overtune him because Lucian has always been the champion that, if you overbuff him, he is by far the best ADC and no one can match him whatsoever. Next up, we also have even further buffs coming over to Nocturne, and the main one to talk about is going to be towards his ultimate, where the bonus AD ratio has been increased by 30%, which is a decent amount, and also his ultimate's damage has been increased by 15 rank 2 and 50 rank 3. Also, just like the other champions with the Duskblade nerf, Nocturne is going to need a little bit of assistance to kind of make up for that loss of damage, and this is a pretty good way to do it. Then we have what we'll call a mini rework coming over to Quinn, which I did talk about before, but we'll talk about it in this video very quickly. The base AD has been lowered, but the AD per level has actually been increased, and a lot of the changes are going towards her ultimate. Such as her ultimate now applies her passive mark to all enemy champions hit by the AoE, which I believe is just a huge buff in itself already. They've done a bunch of bug fixes as well, and also channeling her ultimate no longer breaks when taking damage, and also taking damage from non-minions while channeling or while behind enemy lines is active, aka her ultimate is active, no longer will it break the channel or the form. And whenever you get back to the fountain, your ultimate will instantly be put onto you, so you'll instantly transform into that form. All in all, some pretty damn good buffs and changes coming over to Quinn. I feel like this will actually put her in a pretty decent spot, and I might even consider her playing mid lane for a couple of videos. We'll see what happens. Following this, we have yet another buff, and this one is coming over to Rakan, and he definitely needs it because without Xayah, Rakan by himself is actually not that good of a support. I mean, with Xayah, he's pretty OP, but that's the only time he ever actually shines. So the buffs to him are as follows. The AP ratio on his Q ability has been increased by 10%, his ultimate's AP ratio has been increased by 20%, and the range on his E ability has been increased by 100. However, it's been lowered by 100 whenever he uses it on Xayah. All in all, the goal is to make him less oppressive when he's together with Xayah and a bit more oppressive when he's not with Xayah, which is the correct way to do it. Following this, we also have some buffs coming over to Rengar. So first we have the Ferocity Lockout after using an Empower spell being reduced very slightly. But then moving on to his Q, the AD ratio here has been increased by 10%. The bonus AD ratio on his E ability has been increased by 10%. And the leap bonus damage from his ultimate, the total AD ratio has been increased by 20%. So I feel like at this point, we're kind of seeing a trend among these AD assassins. They're all just getting this extra AD ratio and bonus AD ratio and all that good stuff again to compensate for the Duskblade nerf. But of course, it doesn't stop there just yet, because moving over to Shaco, we have his buff here as well, and it's going to be towards his Q ability that had an effect changed. It now states the following. The first attack after using Deceive now deals, starting at 10 up to 50 base damage, plus 70% to bonus AD and 30% AP, and reduces Deceive's cooldown by 2.5 seconds. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the current Deceive doesn't have any damage on it whatsoever, so having this extra damage now on his Q ability as well is definitely going to be a pretty worthy trade-off from the Duskblade nerf. Next up, we also have a buff coming over to Talon, and my goodness, do I think it's a good one, because I'm going to spam the hell out of Talon next patch. The buff is as follows. His passive, Blade's End. The damage has actually just been overall increased. So now instead of maxing out at 175 by level 11, it now maxes out by 245 at level 18. And on top of this, the bonus AD ratio on his ultimate has been increased by 20%. I think this is a pretty damn good buff, and I'm definitely pretty happy about it. Next up, we also have a buff coming over to Wukong, where first he had his AD growth increased by 0.8, and the bonus AD ratio on his Q ability has been increased from being 10% at all ranks to now starting at 10% rank 1, going all the way up to 50%, so a 40% increase by rank 5 of Q, which also is pretty damn big. And last but not least, for the champions, we have Zed as well, where the base attack speed has been increased a bit, which is actually a pretty good thing for Zed because it helps you last hit under tower and it helps you get that first auto attack after your ultimate that much more quickly. They were testing to see if it would be okay to have Zed's shurikens not do reduced damage if the same shurikens hit the same target, but apparently they have removed that. But he's actually getting a nerf to the extra damage done by his Q ability to targets past the first one, so it's just flat out being decreased, whether it's the base damage or it's the actual AD percent. A little bit of a questionable one there. I mean, hopefully once this change actually comes to the live servers, they'll actually put a proper buff to his Q ability rather than straight up nerf it, which is honestly a little bit strange. But moving on to his ultimate, it now deals 5% extra damage at rank 1 and rank 2 and 10% bonus damage at rank 3. A little bit of a disappointing buff to Zed compared to all the other AD assassins that got buffed as well. And again, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be something better once it does hit the live servers. But moving on to some changes coming over to items, we have Abyssal Mask. The magic damage increase has been increased from 10% to now 15%. However, you can see on the screenshot right here, the AoE of the actual item to give this extra magic damage increase is a lot smaller. It's about half, if not more than half, in terms of actual AoE size. Next up, we finally have the Duskblade nerf that I've been talking about pretty much the entire video. Now it has a new effect, which states Blackout now notes melee attacks instantly kill these devices. So if your Duskblade ends up proccing and it reveals a ward, one melee attack will actually instantly kill it rather than standing there auto-attacking it 3 times, which is pretty annoying. However, that's a buff. The actual nerf is as follows. The damage for melee and ranged champions is the exact same, which you can see now is 30 up to 200. So it's about half the damage at the very beginning, aka if you were to get it at level 1 for melee champions, and it also goes down about 120 less damage for melee champions as well, which is a pretty big hit. Which is why all those champions are now getting pretty significant buffs, except for apparently Zed, which I'm still very confused about. Next up, we also have a rework coming over to Gwynsu's Rageblade. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is coming out the next patch or not, so bear with me, but the current iteration that they have on the PBE is as follows. For 3,000 gold and also working out of an Amplifying Tome, a recurve bow, and a pickaxe, and also 690 gold, you'll be getting an item that gives you 25 AD, 25 AP, 25% attack speed. And a passive that states the following. Basic attacks deal 5 plus 10% bonus attack damage physical and plus 5 plus 10% ability power magic damage on hit. And the unique passive of basic attacks grant plus 8% attack speed, plus 4% bonus AD and AP for 5 seconds up to 6 stacks, and at 6 stacks to get Gwynce's Rage, which states every other basic attack triggers on hit effects twice. So they seem to revert it back to a very similar concept as to the current Gwynce's Rage Blade on the live servers, but again, this might not be the final one, and this might not even come out the next patch, I'm not 100%. Following this, we also have a new item coming out called Shirelia's Reverie, which I have talked about several times before, but I'll quickly mention it once again. For 2100 gold, you're getting an item that gives you 40 AP, 200 health, 10% CDR, a unique passive that gives you plus 8% movement speed, and essentially an AoE movement speed buff for yourself and your team. It is the supportive version of Righteous Glory. You can just think of it that way, people that want to build AP as well. Following this, we also have a new Keystone finally coming out to the live service, and it should be coming out this patch, I believe. It's called Conqueror. This thing is pretty damn spicy, and this will also shift the meta in the top lane, I believe, since bruisers should now be able to duel tanks quite easily. It states the following: after 4 seconds in combat, your first attack against an enemy champion grants you 10 up to 35 AD based on level for 3 seconds and converts 20% of your damage to champions to true damage for the duration. And melee only, damaging enemy champions refreshes this buff. So in that case, let's say you're playing Fiora or Camille and you're consistently dueling a champion like maybe a Sai on top, as long as you're constantly fighting them and always in combat, you're always gonna have this extra 20% damage done to them as true damage over and over and over every single hit. It is pretty damn strong, and I definitely believe it will shake up the meta in the top lane, probably for the better. Following that, we also have Bone Plating getting a little bit of a nerf where the duration has been lowered from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, and we have another new rune. Not a keystone, just a rune. This will be in the resolve tree, and it's called Chrysalis or whatever. It states the following: start the game with an extra 60 health, add 4 takedowns, which is essentially a kill and or assist, consume that health to gain an adaptive bonus of 9 attack damage or 15 ability power. Very interesting one. Not entirely sure how you want to play it. Maybe if you need a little bit of assistance in lane to get a bit of health, but then after that you're kind of good to go, then this is the perfect way to do it, because you're essentially trading off losing extra HP for the sake of getting extra damage, which I think is actually pretty interesting. Again, if you need the help in the laning phase, this is the way to go. Following this, we also have a nerf coming over to the summoner spell Heal, which now has its cooldown increased by 30 seconds, and also Ignite actually received a buff to where now it just does bonus damage. And last but not least, we also have some April Fool skins coming out. Some of them are absolutely wonderful, and a new Hextech Alistair skin as well. Now, whether or not they're coming out the next patch, I'm not sure, but I thought I'd mention it anyways. But that's gonna be it for this video, guys. There you have it, some massive changes coming over to patch 8.6. Literally a huge shift in the meta, because with all these AD assassins coming out for mid lane, for the jungle, and even for top lane with the new Conqueror rune, things are definitely gonna be shaken up quite a bit. So let me know what you think about this patch down below, boys and girls. But thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.